Okay, the question is, how do you become a light worker? Well, it's kind of funny because I never even heard of the term light worker when I went on my consciousness journey. I never heard of it. Didn't know what it was, and then I started hearing it somewhere on the internet. And am I a light worker? No, I'm not. Because it's kind of it's a stupid name. Because it makes you look like you're a very juvenile person who's pretending to be Harry Potter. So, I mean, that's what I see in these people that are light workers. They're a lot of juvenile things. I mean, I did enjoy the Harry Potter movies. They're very enjoyable. So what's wrong with being juvenile about it all? It's kind of well, the demonics want to call it a saccharin term. You know, remember saccharin? It was a sugar substitute before aspartame. It was very sweet, but it had a bad aftertaste. Do light workers have? Yes. It's kind of corny. You know, it's like when I first saw Star Wars when I was 12, it seemed very exciting and, well, adventurous. And I don't know. All the people were so pretty and, you know, they were young like I was and kind of dumb and finding their way. And I don't know. The term just seems kind of plastic, a light worker. But I mean, it's a descriptor, and that's why we got a thesaurus full of different words that have similar meanings. What else would you call it? Consciousness explorer, perhaps. The demonics want to say you're a person that likes to see what happens. They keep wanting to remind me that in their view, I'm never going to be free of the demonic influence. They keep wanting to remind me of other things that they're doing to my body. They like to play with my body. To any other person, it would drive you absolutely insane. And when they first did it to me many years ago, did I go insane? Yes. Yes, I went insane. When you first experience the demonics, and you have a concerted attack against you over a period of time, and you have all kinds of psychic phenomenon going on around you, it'll drive you insane. Part of it is because it's a sustained attack, you lose good rest. Your body doesn't get good rest. So fatigue plays a big part of why people go insane under a psychic attack, demonic attack. Fatigue. It's because it goes on and on and on and on. And I think it breaks you because you can't believe that something horrible like this can go on as long as it goes on. So you mean you might have a stretch of 8 hours of demonics in your mind, bringing a horrible vibration of just horror to you. And then it'll happen again, and it'll happen again, and it'll happen again. And, over the course of weeks, then months, and then years, the question is, do you get toughened up? Well, they're very sly and sneaky, because just when you think you're turning the corner, something else will happen. A new demon will show up, or one of the demons will either acquire a new technique, or I don't know. One of the things that Dr. Hawkins said, Dr. David R. Hawkins, who did consciousness research, said, is that demons have been demons for thousands of years in some cases. So, I mean, if you've been a demonic for thousands of years, holy smokes, if you're going to study human psychology for thousands of years, you're gonna know a lot of tricks. You're gonna know so many tricks, because you're gonna have haunted so many humans. You're going to be an expert haunter. Unbelievably expert haunter. So, yes, I think that's something that happens to you when you're haunted. Do you lose faith? Yes, that's what the demons do. You lose faith in everything that is traditionally taught, especially religious teachings. Religious teachings, I think the demons take great pride in showing you the holes in religious teachings. And it's really weird how religious teachings are propagated down through the centuries, and how much of it is false. And the demonics, because they've been doing it for so long, I think that through trial and error, they figured out so many things. And I mean, some teachings of humans are interesting, so much interesting that you'll get sucked in and brainwashed by them, because Aaron Dowdy just last couple of days put out a video, and it was about fake it till you make it. Beware of these kind of people who are so-called spiritual metaphysical teachers, who say, well, this is our theory, and it was written by so-and-so, and the only way you're going to know if it's going to work is you got to fake it until you make it. And there was another phrase Aaron Dowdy had that was like fake it till you make it, but I can't think of it right now. But anyway, it's fake it till you make it. If you hear that, beware. Because I can't remember what he described it as, fake it till you make it, the problems with it. But if you are trying to use something as a technique to live by, if it's not truthful and it doesn't work, you might end up with a lot of bad side effects. So, okay, I'll go with, what do you learn by trying out these different philosophies? You do learn by it. It's a school of very, very, very hard knocks. Because you take what you were taught by your family and your society, and I think the reason why you go looking for new ways of thinking is because the stuff that you inherited from your society in general doesn't help you. So traditionally, this is known what is becoming a seeker. And what are you seeking? I think you're seeking help. You're seeking help, and seekers will go and become a voracious acquirers of knowledge. All kinds of knowledge they can get their hands on to, voraciously soaking up all kinds of information, being a seeker. And so I think a seeker doesn't like what they've got. I don't think it's necessarily boredom. I think they're just naturally a curiosity kind of person. And I think because our society is such a horrible society, it's such a negative society, it treats people so horribly, that the curiosity person who was given a shitty education by the society drifts into things like self-help books. And the thing is, our society, just that in itself is a big move, because our society so brainwashes us against anything at all that is counter to everything that they teach you in school, for example. I think our public schools and universities, some of the things they teach are very useful. Engineering and, working in a chemistry lab. A lot of the other stuff is very fluffy, very fluffy. The social sciences are very fluffy, and, philosophies and political science. It's all very fluffy. They want to say, the beings, that are with me, they want to ask what about medicine and nursing? Some things are just very practical, like being a nurse. The junior grade nurses, they're very good nurses. They're very, very good at dealing with a lot of things. They're very good. And a lot of it comes from, their training is very good. Doing the physical things like how to change dressings and the various, physical appliances that certain people have, and learning about the different kinds of diseases that people have. It's a very hard job, nurses. Nurses have got a very difficult job. They're amazing people, absolutely amazing people. Nurses are really something else. And, I don't know, doctors. I think some of the doctors are incredibly brilliant, and those are the ones that typically Hollywood likes to portray for you. The really brilliant doctors are the ones you see in Hollywood productions. Not all doctors are like that. I think there's a lot of mediocre doctors who, I don't know, they might have been book smart, but they're not human smart. And I think they get into doctoring and they lose their curiosity, and they become slaves to this physician's desk guide. In other words, you come in with a series of complaints, and they probably have memorized what drugs go with what symptoms. And we all know that the drug companies send their reps in to educate these doctors on their newest drugs. But, these are the same doctors that get into all kinds of troubles because of, quite often it is opiates. Because I don't know, even some of the older doctors seem to be suckers for users of drugs who are very street smart and know how to use people to get what they want, which are the opiate drugs that they might want to use themselves or sell in the black market. And some of these doctors who, once they reach their 60s, after so many years of dealing with people in their offices, you wonder, how on earth do you get sucked in when you're 60 years old by somebody who comes in and wants to abuse your ability to prescribe opiates? So the other weird thing is that some of the doctors that are of the elder age, on the surface, you don't see them very long. You only get, a short, 10 minutes with them in the office. And they wear a lab coat, and, you say something and they prescribe something for you. But you don't know that on the inside, they've got dementia. They've got dementia. So maybe that's what it is. That they lose little bits of their mind. They've got enough of their mind to go in and prescribe drugs for you. But little by little, their dementia is creeping up on them. And perhaps that's how they get taken advantage of by users. Let's move along. Okay, the other thing that we are going to talk about today is, so we were talking about different kinds of people and people who become seekers. So I really got off topic there because the entities that are around me were pushing me off topic. Let's see. So we're talking about seekers, and it's curious people who they're either just curious about everything in general, or things are not working very well for them in their generalized life, and they start to study society. And the society that we're presented with in high school is it's a teacher's view. And everyone knows that teachers are government employees who get the summers off, every vacation the kids do, and golden parachute pensions. Well, at least in the country I live in, they do. I think in the United States, teachers don't get nearly what they do in other Western countries. But they have a certain mindset. And would teachers do anything else? Only if they're offered a hell of a lot of money. Because they don't have an easy job, because they got to deal with personalities, like some nasty students. But generally speaking, everyone has to deal with nasty people in their lives. And they're very protected. They're protected by their teachers' unions, which are huge. And because they've got a nice life, they tend to gloss over how serious society's problems are. Because they don't see it, because they've got enough money to float above a lot of the serious societal problems. But this is what happens when you're taught by these kind of people for a number of years. You think this is the way the world really is. And lo and behold, when you get out of high school and you start to see the way the world really is, it's a huge shock. It's a huge shock, and the shock, it never gets easier. It actually gets worse, because it's demoralizing. Because the more years you spend on the planet, the more you see the structural problems of society that have always been there and are never tackled. And then you see a lot of times it's because of vested interests, which are basically people who benefit from society being broken the way it is. and the ones, well, everyone knows it just seems like society's leaders they're either incredibly stupid or self-serving. And they don't do it for the benefit of the people. And, it's just an entrenched system of, garbage people. So anyway, someone goes as a seeker and they end up in the self-help, and they start looking at the adjoining books in the used bookstore, and they just browse and they pick up things. And if they're a voracious reader, they start just going into things and things and things. But Aaron Doughty said that bit, fake it until you make it. Well, because when you're very naive and you're first getting into self-help and your friend drags you to go and see somebody's presentation, it's a hook. And when you're very young and very naive, you just don't know. You just don't know what you're getting into. And these organizations, which are semi-religious, are cult-like, and they've been around for a very long time, and they're constantly looking for new members because of the money. They do it because of the money, and they got a wonderful veneer on them about this works and, this, that, and the next thing, but it's just another religion. And it doesn't work. It's garbage. And I mean, the rot in our society that is taught as truth, because it's been handed down from generation to generation, and I'm talking about Christianity. Christianity is such rot. It's such rot. It doesn't help children at all. It makes them targets for bullies. This, Jesus turned the other cheek business is a pile of garbage. And it's only after you've been bullied for a long time that maybe you'll get the picture that the only way to deal with a bully is not turn the other cheek, it's to punch them in the cheek. So everything to do with Christianity is a horrible thing to teach children, because it leaves them victims in waiting for the real world. But anyway, getting back to fake it till you make it, if you go and buy into some of these philosophies, what's going to happen to you? Well, you're going to learn through the school of hard knocks. And you're then, after a very long time, let's say 20 years later, you'll look back and you'll see you were prepared to be a victim by your parents and your schools. You were prepared to be a victim because of the garbage that they teach you. And it takes you so many years after you've been going and you've been doing your seeking and faking it till you make it, till you discover, holy shit, I was the biggest sucker ever. I was the biggest sucker ever because, it was a well-written course that I took that was, I paid money for, and there was other students there, and these teachers were very convincing. It's many years later that you realize they're just like used car salesmen. And I told you before, I've been a used car salesman. But, and I'm not talking about sort of, like a general half-decent person that sells used cars, because that's pretty much what they are. But, it's sort of a societal... I don't know, it's a caricature that a used car salesman is just a greasy, slimy thing that is really has sold so many used cars could sell a refrigerator to an Eskimo in the North Pole or something. But this is the way that some of these things that are passed off as self-help groups or, alternative religious groups that are more modern than the traditional ones, they're dangerous. They are so dangerous. They are unbelievable. Are they cults? Yes. But the point is, once you've been through these things and you've had 20 years to reflect on the whole situation, you say, sure, that thing was a cult. But then when you start peeling away the layers to see how you got to be so naive to get involved with some organization, you see, well, it's because the whole society that you grew up in is a cult. Let that sink in for a minute. The whole society you live in is perfectly designed to make you a victim because of the enormous number of lies that are told and the enormous numbers of truth that are specifically ignored on purpose. So you don't learn how to be a street smart person. So I will go ahead and tell you, it's because there's never going to be a good answer. Let's just talk about the one that the beings want me to talk about. Why is it that they really don't emphasize how important is credit and budgeting? Why is it ignored? Why don't they talk about credit bureaus in high school? Why don't they talk about how compound interest can get you trapped under a burden of debt? Why don't they talk about how banks print money out of thin air and lend it at compound interests? How they print money and it grows on trees, but you can't do it because they've got a license to steal. There's so many things that are ignored. I guess it's because it's not part of the curriculum that's set by the ministries of education and the state departments of education. It's all cookie cutter. Everywhere you go, Western countries, you're taught the same shit. And what they call a lot of the science, well, here's the textbook. It's mass produced for the whole country and it must be perfect. And students are just force-fed this stuff. This is what it is. And every student knows what you do with these things is you cram the facts that they are in the book, and then you get a test and you just spit out what they want you to say. There is no investigation on the part of the student of all this early research that all the science is built on. You don't get to do it. You get to do like a dissection of a worm or something. But all of the early stuff, you don't get it. You don't get it. It's just, these are the facts. And then people throughout their whole lives will say, well, science says this because I read it in a science book. That's not science. That's not science. It's the book of lies. And you've been brainwashed by the cult of the book of lies to believe that the word science means the highest truth. But as I said, as a seeker, it takes you decades and decades of being a sucker and falling for different things, different philosophies. And there's so many, everyone is on the street corner trying to sell you their new philosophy. And it's always a sale. And when you're naive and you're looking and they say, well, try it out. See if you think it works. You can't lose anything. Just try it. Fake it till you make it is what they say. They say it every time. Fake it till you make it. In other words, if you don't really understand it, well, just go along with what the other people are doing with it. Copy the other people. In other words, you don't understand it and I've given you a lecture on it, and here's the textbook, you can read it, and you do. But they say in the end, well, the only way it's going to work for you is you really have to believe it. That's what they always say. You got to believe it. In your heart of hearts, you've got to believe it's true in order for it to work for you. It's unbelievable that they say this, and no one warns you about this. No one warns you about the way, it should be a course in high school, how to spot someone who's a really good liar. They could use movies. They could show you movies where there's classic, really stories about con men. And they can say, how did this con man con these people? There's plenty of con man movies, and they could talk about it in school. And they can say, it's not just a comedy. These are real people, and they're in our city. And they're not just selling you used cars. They're trying to sell you all kinds of shit. You have no idea. But they don't. And so you get caught faking it till you make it, until you end up having a huge, huge disaster on your hands. And then some people who never took these courses will say, well, it was a cult. You should have known better. But they're still living with the cult of science that they learned in high school. And they're idiots, because these are the same people that don't read anything. So what's worse, being a seeker and reading all kinds of stuff that's half-truths, or someone who doesn't read at all and, is basically walking around as a brainwashed zombie? The seeker's better off. But as far as the school of hard knocks goes, the seeker goes through the school of hard knocks harder than anybody else. And the end benefit is you get wisdom. You get wisdom. You get wise. Do you get wise enough? You never get wise enough. There's never enough wisdom on this planet. There isn't. Because there's far more shady practices, and I was talking about, these dark beings who have been practicing black magic for lifetime after lifetime, and when they're not in the body, they're still doing their black magic and studying humans and looking to see where are the chinks in their armor. Where can we get this person? And the famous one was C.S. Lewis, famous author C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Screwtape Letters. If you haven't seen the Screwtape Letters, you must read those, especially if you're a Christian or you're familiar with Christianity, because it was written at a time when, the first half of the 1900s, let's say, I don't know what he was, maybe 1936 or something, when the world was pretty much church-going, Christian. And C.S. Lewis wrote Screwtape Letters, and Screwtape is he's a devil who teaches young devils about how to ensnare humans, especially Christians. And, the point of the whole thing is that these are real kind of beings. I mean, it seems like a humorous thing when you read it. It's a humorous comedy. Oh, you could see the wit that's involved in writing this. But the kicker is not really presented to you, that these are real beings, real demons. And they have studied humans, and they know that the biggest human failing is humans cannot tell truth from falsehood. They cannot tell what's true and what's false. All they've got is their previous programming from the previous cult that they were inculcated in. The only way that humans get wisdom is through time. And that's only if they are active in looking at so-called knowledge and trying it out and seeing what happens. many decades later looking back and saying, oh my God, I didn't have a chance in this world because they lied to me about things from the get-go. Half-truths, and really good salesmanship. And you wonder why there's such good salesmen on the planet that make so much money. It's because they're really good at selling you shit. And, I still see older people fall for this. By now, if you were a seeker, you should be really wise to these people. But no, it's like the story of the old lady who meets a young man, and the young man starts saying, gee, sexy, we should get together. And, not that much long later, the old lady has transferred all of her money to the young man. Does the lady have dementia? No. She has got her sexual urges and her desires for a pretty young man to be in her life who's showing her attention. Should she know better? Oh, by the time you're in your 60s, you should know better. But, when the person really shows up looking at you all pretty and young and handsome, and and just starts complimenting you, and you haven't been complimented on your looks for so long, at some level it's a lie that you're an old lady, but somehow it's worth it, and the next thing you know is you've lost control of yourself. That's all I got for now, dealing with demonics and human charlatans.